Thank you so much. I'll begin. I'm used to teaching undergraduate engineers, and so typically I begin by telling them what they should remember, and then I present the lecture, and then maybe I tell them again what they were supposed to have gotten from the lecture, and that seems to work, so I'm going to do that a little bit with you. As you may have gathered from my introduction, I have some background in the nuclear industry. I worked for Bruce for a number of months. I've known many neutron scatters, but I have no background in radiopharma. So I have perhaps the most remarkable version of imposter syndrome that I've experienced so far. So we'll see how this goes. But I was pleased when I showed up and I heard Joe McCann, and he was talking about, and he connected revenues to patients, and that you can both make money and you can extend lives. And I thought, okay, that's an interesting thing, and that's consistent with what my understanding was. He mentioned that Canada was actually doing quite well in terms of getting clinical trials here. And Valerie Hergott from Eli Lilly came up after him and talked about, from a company's perspective, why would you go anywhere else to do a clinical trial rather than do it in Canada? But it was mentioned, Joe mentioned it previously, that over 80% of the clinical trials in Canada were company-based and very few are investigator-based, and that they are, I think he described it as broad but shallow. And he decried the lack of really creative out-of-the-box thinking in terms of those clinical trials. And so to me, this is really about the challenge of unleashing the power of academia, which is in part creative, brilliant profs, but it's mostly about amazing graduate students and postdocs, and to really get them working to drive this industry as it goes forward. So what does that mean? I think what I'm ultimately going to tell you about is that in my humble opinion, having listened to you for a few years now, I would say that it's critically important that Isotopes for Hope, which is a remarkable and amazing initiative to restore Canada's place as the provider of medical isotopes to the world, be continued but be extended so that Canada becomes the supplier of diagnostics and life-saving treatments to the world, and in doing that is able to grow a homegrown industry that's some fraction of the world's radiopharm industry. Okay, so that's what I'm going to have to say. Why Hamilton? Why McMaster? Well, it turns out Hamilton has become the center of what is really quite a thriving commercialization ecosystem for radiopharm. The idea is to go all the way from initial research into patients. McMaster has played an important role in that, and I'm very proud of that. I had nothing to do with it, but I'm very proud of it. We do produce iodine-125, which is a treatment that goes into patients, and we've been doing that for many years. So we've already gone to the end point in some respect for one limited case. And what is it that allowed us to do that? Well, it was necessity. We have a reactor. Reactors are very expensive. Iodine-121 brings in a lot of money to McMaster, and that makes that whole thing work. We're probably the only university-based research reactor without a significant source of government-based operating funds in the world. We have a strong culture throughout the university of translation, and more recently at producing spinouts for success. And we are a very good university in terms of developing partnerships. And I think what's needed here is, and I've heard this a number of times, partnerships with CNL and with Triumph and with all the other regional organizations, some of which we just heard about. Partnerships with industries like Eli Lilly and AstraZeneca, but also partnerships with Bruce and OPG, and the entire nuclear supply chain, which will be involved in this. Partnerships with other universities, de-risking their investment in radiochemists and physicians, researchers who look at these types of treatments. Partnerships with the Indigenous communities, heard yesterday they're ready, and that's the same message that we've been getting. And also partnerships with government. I heard the comments about Health Canada, so I'm not so naive as to say is that government hears us, because government is not one thing. But what I can say is that there's powerful and effective champions that exist that I'm aware of in the federal government and in the Ontario government in particular, and that we should be cultivating those people and empowering them to help us. We call ourselves Canada's Nuclear University. This is a bragging slide that I have to put up, but I'm going to save a little bit of time. What are we going to be doing in the future to empower these things that I've talked about? And I'll add a little bit of color to each of these. The McMaster reactor is 1 year younger than I am, so you can take a look at me and figure that out. And it's basically operating the same as it did when Harry Thode imagined it way back then. But it does have another 20 years life. It just recently got an extension by the regulator to operate for another 20 years. I wish I had the same thing. But we're now looking for the first time to really revitalize the reactor. We're going to be moving to higher power, but we're going to be doing more than that. We've heard about the amazing things that have happened from the CANDU reactors and their ability to make radioisotopes. We think, and by we I mean the nuclear engineers at McMaster who actually know something about this, that by using beryllium reflectors, by positioning where fuel elements go, and other flux trapping techniques, that we can actually elevate the neutron flux in the McMaster reactor to mimic a CANDU over a very small region. We heard yesterday from Bruce Power that the ability for any of the CANDU reactors to put a new isotope into their reactor is going to be held up for months and years, because they have to go through because they're a power reactor, they have to go through a really rigorous evaluation to make sure that that's safe and is not going to interrupt power. McMaster has a very broad license. We can put things in and out of the reactor, not on a moment's notice, but we do it on a regular basis. So we are the ideal place to de-risk new isotopes that might go into a CANDU and be produced at scale. If we do that, we can develop the processes, and we've done this, to develop the targets, to purify the materials, develop the IP within Canada about how all that processing might take place, and really then even begin to supply people who are doing research, early stage curiosity studies on new isotopes, deliver that to them. And so de-risk everything, and then we have in our doorstep these massive manufacturing machines that can start to produce that isotope at scale. So I think that's a powerful paradigm. We'll be looking at getting new cyclotrons. The university is committed to this, that we'll be getting a higher power cyclotron, and possibly others. We'll end up with a fleet of cyclotrons to be able to augment the neutron-based developments. Expansions of our hot cells. We have been responsible for the decanning, that is the allowing for transport of the lutetium that's been coming down from Bruce. We'll continue that activity as long as they need us, but we'll also be looking to carry out other activities. And then there's the people component. We have a very robust and large health physics group, over 100 people, which for a university is remarkable. And they're very versatile and adept at looking at new challenges. We have another 100 people who work in the reactor and the other facilities that are available to us. We've quadrupled the number of people being trained in the area, including a nuclear miner, which has a stream that's dedicated to radiopharm. So we're beginning this process of developing pipelines of people, reskilling people who want to move into the industry. All of these activities are taking place in tandem. And we have a very active, I almost forgot, and I shouldn't have, we have a very active process of aggressively recruiting. This has become the #1 priority for the university. And so we are really looking to bring talent into McMaster, and you'll be hearing much more about that in future days. I wanted to lay out something for CBDC. and this is something that I just discovered preparing for this talk. I've known John Valiant for both of our careers, and the application for CPDC is approaching its 20th anniversary. So it created at McMaster GMP grade infrastructure. It has spun out multiple companies and entities across the country. I mentioned Fusion and Atom V because those are both remaining local. In fact, Atom V, if you think of Atom V as a child of McMaster, I can tell you that for all the mothers in the room, this is a big kid, and getting them out is a challenge. It's over 100 people. If Bruno's in the room, I think we've had this conversation, but like I think any mother, 5 minutes after that pain is gone, we will be just delighted and view them as the most beautiful thing in the world. So there's been a lot of things that this is a powerful message to duplicate. I'm a physicist by training. So 1 can be a fluke, 2 is not. 2 means that it's commonplace, right? So now we have demonstrated that we can put out, and I mentioned down here, Candina has a booth out here for you to visit. There's a third one that's coming out in a very different way out of CPDC that's not connected to McMaster, except that we're facilitating it. But we've now in this region had multiple places where we scaled out parts of the ecosystem. Now is the time to start thinking about, okay, what does the ecosystem miss? What do we need to put in? What needs to be public money? What needs to be private capital that's de-risked by smart public investments? And let's go forward with that. But this is an important argument to have in our arsenal. McMaster will continue to act as kind of the glue behind this, looking to see what is needed in order to nurture this and make sure that it goes, to do that smart investment, to do that smart advocacy to government. And in fact, one of the opportunities that we have to do this is that I can go on to the AIs and I can get an analysis of, give me a modest, a low, a medium, and an optimistic scenario for what's going to happen with Atom V and with Fusion AZ over the next 5 years. What is their contribution going to be to GDP? Given the multipliers that are associated with the radiopharm industry, what are the revenues that are going to accrue to the provincial and federal governments from that? That's enough money to put a long bore scanner in every research facility across the country and more. So when we go to government and ask for investments to make this industry work, what we're really doing is not saying, take a chance on this. This is a high risk, high reward opportunity. What we're really saying is invest in the strengths that have already been proven to be successful, right? And that's where every investor should want to end up landing up, right? We can take something we've already shown we know how to do, invest more, and get more coming out. So the last piece that I'll be talking about is the McMaster Innovation Park. This is one of the few innovation parks in the world, and Hamilton is one of the few jurisdictions in the world where if you say you want to work with radioactive materials, their eyes light up and they are delighted. Okay, so that doesn't happen everywhere, but it's true here. There are multiple companies that are starting up. I've mentioned a few of them, but there's new startups like Radiosynth, which is Sam Sadeghi, if you want to learn about the future of micro-compartmentalized synthesis within regional health centers. You can talk to Sam before you leave. There's really out-of-the-box types of things that we're doing with Astral Systems and with Promation, trying to develop really different ways to do neutron-based generation of isotopes regionally. So there's a lot of innovation that is happening in this center, and it's really happening largely around the Innovation Park. So that's the pitch. I did mention in the call to action, I did mention that one of the things that we should be doing, and here's the hook. One of the things we should be doing is being a leader amongst the leaders worldwide in terms of delivery to patients. That's a big challenge. I did hear the comments about Health Canada. You can see the list there. I think there's great opportunity to do this, and it's something that we should get on with.